Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar. Let's just give us one more minute to let some other attendees join who are in the waiting room. And we'll start very shortly. Thanks. Francis, can you just confirm that audio, video, screen sharing is all okay?
Hello, Amrish. Loud and clear, and we can see your presentation.
Great, thank you. Okay, well, I think let's get started. We have an hour session, so let's jump straight to it. We have almost 20 people on the call, so thank you everyone for joining. Thanks for joining today's session. My name is Amrish Shah. I think I'll keep my video on for a second, then we'll turn it off as we go into the presentation so we don't destroy any bandwidth. But today is an Edge Discovery workshop. We're going to be running through the Edge program and the Edge tool, give you an overview. It's a 1 hour introduction workshop, so you'll get a high-level view of what the Edge program is, why it exists, its place in the market, and we'll do a little Q&A session afterwards to ask any questions. Francis will be managing the questions in the question chat, so feel free to put any questions there. We'll try and answer some in the session itself. Otherwise, if we can't do it in the session, we'll do it at the end of the session. So please feel free to post your information on your questions there. So a little bit about me. My name is Amrish Shah. I am a board member with the Kenya Green Building Society. I've been involved with KGBS for the past 7-8 years, since the early days of inception, when green buildings was a relatively unknown word or idea, and to now where it's gained a lot of traction in the market, and as many of you are aware, it's becoming more and more recognized. I'm also a sustainability consultant and run a green building design and certification consultancy. I'm a lead AP, a Green Star AP, an Edge expert, a WELL AP, and an Edge trainer. So very well versed with the mainstream green building rating tools that exist in the market and internationally. Okay, I will turn the video off and make sure we can all hear everything clearly. So look, today we're going to be looking at understanding the need for green buildings, what green buildings are. We'll look at the Edge software itself, do a demonstration of it, show you how the tool works. We'll look at some case studies, and then we'll do a Q&A session. And if anyone has any burning questions in the middle of the presentation, feel free to raise your hand in the chat. Francis can monitor that, and we can. We'd like to make it interactive. I recognize we have 99 people registered for the event. Right now we have 24 people on the call, so we can allow for some questions if it permits. Okay, so we need to understand the need for green buildings, right? Why do we need these tools in the first place? Now there's 3 main areas we look at. The first is the global outlook for energy and water. Energy use is growing. The International Energy Agency tells us that from 2015 to 2035, global energy consumption is expected to grow by 37%, and 96% of this expected growth will be attributed to developing nations. we can see that, it's predicted that there will be 100% increase in the population of developing countries by 2050. And as many of you are aware, emerging economies and countries are in the midst of a construction boom, which is placing a lot of resource constraints in these areas. In terms of water, global water consumption has grown at more than twice the rate of population increase in the last century. And developing countries will see another 50% increase by 2025. By 2025, it's estimated that 1.8 billion people will be living in countries or regions with absolute water scarcity. And 2/3 of the world's population could live under water stress conditions. Looking at the impact of building materials, this graph shows that the main materials used in buildings are in blue versus the ones versus other uses in gray. You can see here that 75% of all concrete is used in buildings, and 40% of the natural materials in the world are used in the construction of buildings. So it's a huge amount of resources placed on buildings. So the method of manufacturing is very important, and the production of the materials is what causes a lot of greenhouse gas emissions and CO2 emissions. The iron and steel sector account for 11% of all global CO2 emissions, and 5 to 7% of all global CO2 emissions are caused by cement production. And more than 5% of the world's entire electrical generation is spent on the production of aluminium. So researchers are constantly looking for ways to improve how these materials can be used, constructed, or alternative materials that can be used. It's important to understand the embodied energy versus operational energy in buildings. For a typical office building, around 10 to 15% of the energy use is from embodied energy, while operational energy savings are very important. It's important to understand the critical role of embodied energy. So the indicator used to measure this is obviously embodied energy materials, which you'll see in the EDGE app, and we'll cover that. So these three items or criteria categories, energy, water, materials, are what make up the EDGE tool, which we'll see in a second. So how do we relate these resource pressures to building design, construction, and operation? 35% of the world's energy consumption happens in buildings. Buildings themselves don't consume the energy, but the energy is consumed or use these buildings to support, housing, businesses, homes, etc. In a similar vein, 5% of the world's water consumption occurs in buildings, and 15% of the world's annual greenhouse gas emissions result from the construction and operation of buildings. This figure actually does not include the manufacture of materials, which obviously make it much higher. What's driving the green buildings market? There's several factors. I'll go through these as quickly as possible because I want to spend as much time on the EDGE tool itself. But national and regional policies to address climate change. Governments recognize the importance of the building sector in helping to address climate change, as it contributes to a significant proportion of the greenhouse gas emissions. So they're increasingly creating policies which mandate minimum standards for energy performance. I think we're familiar with that in Kenya. The ERC had some regulations come out. I understand, our audience here is mainly in the energy or made up of energy professionals, so this will be relevant. You will note that Dubai recently issued a green building code, which was helping drive that green energy initiative there. IFC is helping governments across the world with green building codes, and IFC has been very active in helping develop these in various countries in the world, from the South America, Central Americas, the Far East, Vietnam, Philippines, etc. The cost of utilities is a big thing, rising costs. So, particularly in developing countries, it's a major concern for the building owners and asset managers. Utilities can absorb up to 20% of the income of families. So, getting towards more efficient energy and water efficient buildings is really a practical necessity in terms of commercial efficiency and improved living standards. The rise of voluntary green building certifications, we'll see more of these green building standards are appearing in the world. The LEED, the Green Stars, the WELL, EDGE is another one. And EDGE has obviously been launched by IFC, which is sort of the new kid on the block. It's kind of filling that gap, which answers the needs of the mass market in developing countries. And we'll talk about this in a second, but many of the other mainstream green building certification tools, LEED, Green Star, were very sort of unachievable for a lot of projects, and Edge has given this opportunity for the mass market to really adopt and use a tool to help green their projects. Sustainable subsidies for energy efficiency and micro renewable energy. There's a lot of incentives, coming out there, such as in India, they have local grants and loans available through local banks to improve energy efficiencies. China has large subsidies in place to increase the uptake of energy efficient light bulbs and solar collectors. So there's a lot happening on that side. And then, lastly, ethical investment, environmental reporting, green bonds. As the population becomes more aware of issues such as global warming, ozone depletion, etc., there's a demand for companies to adopt a responsible sort of position on ethical and environmental issues, and be more transparent about their activities. So there's been a big growth in the ethical investment funds and wider uptake of environmental management systems, which is placing greater pressure on organizations to report on their environmental performance and show the continuous improvement year after year. We've seen from an institutional investor interest perspective, the green bonds has surged worldwide since IFC's first issuance in 2010. The green bond market is now estimated to have reached $600 billion. So while renewable energy has taken the lion's share of those proceeds, green buildings are also, the share is also growing fast in that. So the benefits for green buildings are not only environmental. The deployment of energy efficient technologies, which are already commercially available, can result in energy savings equivalent to the consumption of Russia and India combined. This equates to a $70 to $150 billion savings, and not from this equates to a $70 to $150 billion in savings from not having to build new power plants. Green building design and rating is not commonly found in developing countries. Consumers and developers are unaware of the financial benefits of resource efficient buildings, and financing is not readily available or well designed to support green building development. However, all this is happening despite the fact that green building options are generally highly cost effective. Financial benefits are not only at the national level. Some studies exist for the developed world, providing insight into the financial benefits to developers, occupiers, and funders of green buildings. We'll see here from this, from this infographic that studies in the US and Europe have shown that developers can, for example, command higher sales price on their green certified homes, ranging from 4 to 9%. Green homes can sell as much as 4 times faster. Occupants save 15 to 20% on low utility bills. There's higher resale values, and banks enjoy lower default rates. Sorry if I'm going fast on some of this. There is quite a lot of background I'd like to cover before we jump into the Edge tool itself. So excuse me if I'm breezing through this, but some of this is quite important. There's many market barriers that exist, and it's not a problem of a lack of building technologies and know-how. It's the economic benefits are well documented and well understood, but the building sector is very complex. There's a cycle of denial. There are many players with diverse interests, and information is not always readily available. The main problems are, there are additional costs in most cases. So who pays for these costs? Developers don't want to absorb the costs when the saving benefits will go to the owners. Owners are uncertain about promised operational savings, and so the immediate affordability, will outweigh uncertain energy, water savings in the long term. Bankers don't want to provide additional financing to cover the costs because they fear, it'll increase non-payment risk, and they also don't want to establish systems to validate savings if there is not a sufficient level of green building pipeline to finance. Investors don't want to invest in something they see as a one-off special project and not the way most buildings are being built. So, each market player needs validation of the upfront costs and the projected resulting benefits. This is where IFC has come in, and they've developed this tool to really tackle the market barriers and catalyze the market. So before we, can address these barriers, let's look at, how we define green buildings, what IFC is, and move from there. So IFC, it's a member of the World Bank Group, and they are focused on solutions for private sector development and it's part of its mission to create markets that support climate business. They have a 4-pronged strategy through the Edge Green Building Market Transformation Program. So they support financial products in the market, they invest in green buildings and technologies, they help with government regulations by introducing green building codes, and finally they have created the Edge certification program, which is the focus of today's session. So IFC, realized that a metrics-driven, scalable, voluntary standard was needed to align the interests of the mass market players and prove the case for green buildings and reward innovative design. So recognizing that this approach was missing, IFC created Edge. Now IFC aims to achieve a certification penetration of 20% in target markets with the help of local and global certification providers and building professionals across the world. So what is Edge? Edge stands for Excellence in Design for Greater Efficiencies. It consists of 3 components. The first is a free software, which helps you choose the most cost-effective way to build green. The software is free and can be accessed from the Edge website. Number 2, Edge is an achievable green building standard with a 20% resource efficiency criteria. You have to be 20% more efficient in the 3 criteria, which is energy, water, and materials, in order to pass. The third is that it's a certification system to verify and reward green building projects through the green label. So the Edge software is free for all users. It takes just a few minutes to register at edgebuildings.com. It's a simple, reliable way to save on utility bills while reducing the your project's carbon footprint. The software can be used by building professionals without the need for deep energy modeling skills. This is something different to other mainstream certification engines or tools which require more complex energy modeling skills that you have to seek in the market. So the complexity of the application is hidden beneath the user interface, which makes it easy for clients to cut back on the resource intensity for their building designs. And there's a lot of information on the methodologies and etc. on the Edge website, and we can quickly go through that later. The software, gives you technical solutions for going green and captures the capital costs and your projected operational savings in real time. And we'll have a look at how that works as well. But it's important to note that the design responsibility stays with the design team. It can assist the design team, but it's not supposed to be used to design itself. So the Edge standard provides consistent measurement or assessment of building performance. It measures a local base case. It measures against a local base case. It's aligned with the national and international priorities. It's a support tool for designers to achieve greener buildings with local data. I think that's one of the biggest differentiators from other green building tools. It uses local data, which IFC has collected. So when you use the Edge tool in different cities across the world, even within the same country, if you have a same building in Nairobi versus in Kisumu, it will actually you will perform differently because of the climate and localized conditions. So Edge has various different standards. We have the Edge Certified, there's Edge Advanced, there's Edge Zero Carbon. These are the 3 main categories of it. We won't go into detail today's session. It's also important to understand that it's possible to use Edge for any new and existing buildings of all these various typologies. So it's a very sort of diverse in its approach, and you can also use it to certify a portfolio of projects as well. So I've touched on it a little bit, but how's Edge different from other certification systems? It's designed to be simpler, faster, and more economical. Choosing a certification system that's right for a project depends on a lot of factors. Each project will decide project to project what suits them, but Edge is really a numbers-based has a numbers-based approach. So with speed and simplicity and affordability, that makes it quite a lot more attractive for a lot of developers or building design teams to use. So, you know, it's not meant to be competitive. It's really meant to help scale up the green building movement. And it's kind of a fresh new way of looking at green buildings. You know, just to touch on the base case versus an improved case, you know, Edge will take a base case, and everything we do is an improvement over the base case, which gives us our savings. It was actually predicted performance. You know, the building geometry it becomes simplified, so Edge uses a simplified orientation. It uses the same geometry for the base case and the improved case. The orientation of the base case is equally measured in all directions. Only the window to wall ratios and external shading in the improved case can be influenced by the user. I won't go into too much of the technicalities. This is something that can be done in the Edge Experts training, which is an 8-hour Edge training session, which can be organized through KGBS. There's the Edge website has many case studies you can have a look at. So, you know, when you do certify a project, IFC and Edge publish it on their websites, and you can get a lot of exposure through that. But if you'd like to have a look at what Edge projects exist in the market, you know, feel free to have a look at the website. Now I'm just going to share another screen. We're just going to do a quick short video to explain the Edge tool, which is often
Welcome. In this video, you will learn how to meet the Edge standard. The Edge standard requires that a project reach at least 20% less energy, water, and embodied energy and materials compared to a base case building. Let's get under the location data section, choose the country, city, and income category for our project. Now we'll enter our building data to begin designing our base case, such as the number of floors and the expected occupancy per unit. You will notice that the default values for space allocation appear in the middle column. Enter the relevant data for our project in the column on the right. Select whether our building will provide an AC or heating system at the time of construction. Below the Building System section, open Key Assumptions. Review and adjust the assumptions as needed. Take note that documentation will need to be provided for any changes. The cost defaults show the averages for our selected country. For accurate projections, review each cost carefully. We've now designed our base case building. Let's move on to the Energy tab to begin designing our resource-efficient building. The project's base case reflects the building's energy use before any design selections have been made. Our improved case will change once we select energy efficiency measures. As our apartment does not include AC or space heating, virtual energy reflects the eventual energy required for thermal comfort. Select energy efficiency measures and compare their costs and impacts instantly. Here, enter specific details for each measure, such as the solar photovoltaics percentage of annual electricity use. Any changes made will override the suggested improved case in the name of the measure. Click on the name of the measure to learn more. From there, access the EDGE user guide for more in-depth information on the measure. After reaching at least 20% energy savings, let's move on to the Water tab. First, select Water Efficiency Measures, and then enter the specific details for each measure. Certain water measures positively impact energy savings if related to the heating of water. Let's proceed to the Materials tab. This section calculates the amount of energy required in making the construction materials for the building. We're required to enter information for each materials category. Select materials from the drop-down menus. If the project has more than one material for any of the categories, use the proportion field. Next, select a material for wall insulation. This is required as we selected external wall insulation as an energy efficiency measure. To see the baseline assumptions, such as for the floor slabs, click on the name of the category. Here, alter the thickness and steel rebar as needed. Our building has met the EDGE standard and at over 40% energy savings can be certified as EDGE Advanced. Let's check on our incremental cost and payback period. Our results tell us that each unit costs an additional $703.76 and takes less than 2 years to pay back through utility savings. The projected utility cost reduction of $30 per unit is the value that can be marketed to home buyers through the EDGE certification. Once we save our project, we're ready to register for certification.
So I think you can see from, oops, screen sharing is paused.
Welcome to the Introduction to EDGE webinar.
Oops.
Today's presentation will be delivered by Vasela Valcheva McGee on
Sorry, that was the next YouTube video playing. Apologies for that. So you can see there from the demonstration that EDGE is, it's a very user-friendly, simple tool to use. Again, we'll jump into it when I do a live demo and show you, I'll walk you through some of the measures, etc. Just before we do that, I'd like to just run through, some case studies and look at the EDGE certification process. Then we'll jump into the live demonstration and a Q&A. So, one of the main barriers to building green is a perception of the higher costs of green measures. However, it's evident across several markets that incremental cost of green buildings are significantly lower than previously thought, particularly when they are incorporated in the early stages of the building design. The cost of building green varies across locations, which is driven by climatic conditions, the available building materials, and local expertise. But these 4 examples here show that green interventions are economical across geographies and even for low-income housing, which is extremely important to understand. So in South Africa, there's an investor called IHS. They've developed some of the first low-cost housing that meets the EDGE standard or has met the EDGE standard, and they have reported that the additional cost ended up being around $270 per housing unit, which represented 1% of the construction cost. There's similar results in Vietnam from the Capital House low income housing developer, and in Mexico the IFC clients built affordable communities including hospitals and healthcare health clinics and parks and schools. The additional cost of green technologies was about $300 per home. In Indonesia, the development of a particular project, reported additional costs of 4.7% with a payback of 1.8 years. So, if you do incorporate EDGE early into your design process, you can minimize the incremental costs. This is a project in Nairobi, which is a good example of utility cost reduction. It's the Best Western Hotel on Riverside Drive. They employed, very sensible design measures such as natural ventilation, smart technologies, solar hot water, LED and lighting and control sensors. They also had very efficient water flush flow fixtures, which made this project very easy to achieve certification. And for the developer, it just made sense financially as well, reduced their costs, etc., etc. Acorn, this is, this slide probably pertains more to the green bond aspect of it. But it's important to understand that Acorn Housing actually developed a green bond or launched a green bond for their portfolio of green housing. This was Kenya's first green bond, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with this project. It's been on the news for featured on the news quite a lot, and it just proves how the case for building green is there. Once you get this certificate, it's gives you an opportunity to sort of list the percentage savings and measures, have an official certificate you can share with, investors, developers, users. Verifies the claim of your efficiencies in your project and serves as sort of a common language. This also is very good for compliance. I think we'll touch on it slightly as well on the energy side as well, with ERC regulations and the the energy auditing requirements that came out. EDGE can be a very good tool to help you in addressing and understanding the energy use of different projects. So for the energy auditors out there, I think EDGE can be a very useful tool for you. Here's some more data from this IHS case in South Africa. IFC publishes all these studies on affordable housing. I think there's a big push towards the affordable housing, but here you can see that in this particular project they had smart meters in their project, so it showed the savings on utility consumptions. So they had a lot of good data there, and the actual annual savings added up to about 1%. Added up to about 1 month of rent payment for the residents. So they actually saved 1 month's rent in terms of the utility cost reduction for their projects. As many of you are aware, Kenya's State Department of Housing and Urban Development issued a decree that all affordable housing development projects under the Big Four agenda must meet the EDGE building standard. So the government's going to provide free land to build affordable housing projects that meet the commitment to the resource efficiency. This decree was the result of the training and research undertaken by us at KGBS, and serves as a great model for standards and incentives by governments to catalyze these public-private partnerships for affordable and green housing. EDGE differentiation through utility savings and World Bank group branding can lead to faster sales. This project in Vietnam was able to increase their sales 3 times by having the EDGE certification for their low-income housing. Like IHS, they used very sensible features in the design, resulting in only a 1% increase in capital costs. This led to a significant increase in their sales. Onto the government incentives, we're seeing a lot of incentives coming across the world. IFC's mapping these all out, and it's also giving a platform for other governments to learn and how they can adjust similar sort of incentive measures within their jurisdictions. Some of these can bring big benefits to developers, for example, lower permitting fees in Ghana, or the green bond tax exemption in Kenya, which will help encourage that. Hiring EDGE experts. is, generally best practice. These are technical advisors who've been trained and accredited by IFC and are part of a global community of green building professionals. The experience has shown that the best practice is for edge experts to be employed by a developer and embedded within the process. These edge experts can provide training to your clients and will ensure quality control across your portfolios. Edge experts, ensure that the certification compliance is executed within the time frame set, for your construction project. And there's various different, levels of technical advice possible. But it is advisable that you have an edge expert, but it is not required. It's not mandatory for you to have an edge expert on your project. You are well in with your right if you're starting your own project to use, do the entire certification process yourself. It obviously just makes it easier. It's the same with any of the green building tools across the world. Edge programs many ways to get trained as a technical expert. IFC is not the trainer, but they have licenses through their training partners. So if you want to get trained as an edge expert, you can reach out to KGBS, and we have various certification partners that we work with for this training. When you certify your project, IFC extends lots of marketing support to make sure they promote the projects. So this is, sort of a preview of what they do. Edge connects developers and investors, so you can actually connect yourself with an investor on the Edge app itself. I'll show you in a second. And looking at the Edge certification workflow, it's as simple as this. You register the project, you submit a design certification, you get that reviewed by an Edge auditor and approved. Then at the final stage of construction, you will do another submission and audit. And then if you want to go for zero carbon, that's something you'll do in the operations side. I won't go into the details of that today. That's something that can be learned in our Edge experts workshop, which is a much more detailed look at the Edge tool. Now, there's two global certifiers that IFC and Edge works with. That's the GBCI and Sintali SGS. Each have slightly different fees. GBCI is the operational entity of the US Green Building Council that also runs the LEED certification, and SGS Sintali is a separate organization that does that. So I'm just going to pull up the Edge app. Excuse me 1 second. Okay, and feel free to post any questions in the chat. I'm not sure if I'm seeing them all, Francis, but I can't see any questions yet. I hope I'm looking.
There are no questions so far.
Okay.
But also feel free to raise your hand and I'll unmute your mic for you to ask a question.
Okay, I trust we can see the Edge app. Francis, just confirm you can see my screen, please. The Edge app.
Confirmed.
Yep. Okay, so here we are. You saw in the video what it looks like. A brief run through. But here we've created a project. This is just a test project. It's a project in Nairobi. We created an office building. We put in the various parameters. We have 4 different tabs here: the design, and then we have the actual category for resource efficiencies. In the design tab, this is where we lay the base case. We put all the building data in, the geometry, the number of floors, the floors below grade. If we had basements, we put 2 basements here, the floor to floor height, whether there's a food court. The Edge will give you default values to start with, and when you actually submit a project, you must put the actual values here. Just move the screen, and we put the orientation details. We have the building lengths, etc., etc. So you'll build your base case here. You can say whether the building has AC systems or not. In this particular project, if it's an office building in Nairobi, we would obviously, well, we would like to design ideally for no AC system and obviously no heating system, in which case we'll put no here. But if you were designing with AC systems, you would select this, and you'll see why when we move into the energy tab. On the top row here, be mindful of this as I'm adjusting some of the measures. You'll see these changes happen here, and sorry, I've got this window in the way. We can see here key metrics we should be looking at: the payback in years, the incremental cost of the project, and the utility cost reductions. So essentially, we've laid out a base case for a building here, the design parameters, and we move into the energy efficiency measure. And here we go. We would select the window to wall ratio. In this particular case, we've created a hypothetical scenario. It's given us a window to wall ratio of 40%. We may say this building has some external shading. Great, we'll tick that box, and you'll see the changes have already been made here. We've suddenly received a 12% increase in energy efficiency by having external shading on the building. There's an inbuilt calculator here which you will use to model your shading. That's a simplified tool, and again, you can learn that in more detail either yourselves or through our Edge Expert training. Let's say we have some, high low E coat glass, some efficient solar control glass that's on the project. We put that in. We should see a change in our energy performance as that loads. So the edge can be slightly slow. And you can see here we've got a base case versus the improved case. So this is always comparing a base case against an improved case. Virtual energy comfort is something that we won't go into now, but it's really based on, if you have no AC systems, what does Edge predict based on your building design that you will likely need to achieve it. So if you have a poorly designed building with a big Western facade that's going to get a lot of heat gain, Edge can predict that you're most likely, and you haven't designed for any AC at all, Edge will predict that you're most likely going to see your tenants come in and put AC in, and that's what this virtual energy is about. So let's move down. We decide that perhaps we have natural ventilation in the project. We've designed the natural ventilation to meet the required openings, window openings for the natural ventilation requirements. Again, we see our energy performance has increased even more. There's a lot here on air conditioning. I'm sure all you energy professionals would be quite interested in seeing the impacts of this. We won't go into it in all detail now, but you can definitely play around with this on your own time. Remember, this is a free tool to use. You can log in anytime you like, edgebuildings.com, create an account, and you can use the tool for free, and you can put your own hypothetical building into the project. And excuse me. Apologies, it's logged me out. I'm just having to log back in again. 1 second. So, okay, I have to log back in. It's logged me out for some reason. Apologies. Are there any questions? I guess everything was very clear then. I can see a hand has been raised.
Yes, there's a raised hand from Trudy Mwanga. Let me just unmute her.
Yes.
Trudy, you're on.
Hi, thank you so much. That was a very thorough presentation and did hit all the markers and very clear. I do have a couple of questions. One being that the one I put in the box, which is basically, is it likely to be as a program or as a system? Is it likely to be user friendly for your regular Joe Blow? I raise that because we have in Uganda generally not everybody either uses a professional, or if they do use one for design purposes, they may not actually go back and engage a professional for the for the greening or for the sustainability element. And where you have a challenge to actually get people enthused about the idea of trying to incorporate sustainability principles or sustainable items in their building and construction, I thought it might be useful to have something which is you can really promote as easy to use and user friendly. I raise it because a recent quick study I think showed that 40% of the houses that are going up are, one, self-built, and two, not necessarily subject to inspection. Would you be able to assure me that I can guard and tell people that it is absolutely 100% easy peasy and good for any person who wants to get into the building process or who's active in building process?
Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, thanks for your question, Trudy. So in short, yes, I would say Edge has really simplified this completely. I mean, as a green building professional working with some of the other tools, they are overly sort of comprehensive and complicated. Not overly, but they are comprehensive and complicated. Edge has absolutely sort of democratized this tool, so it's extremely user friendly and easy to be understood by even non-building professionals. Now, I'm not sure on the last part of your question and sort of engaging professional. I mean, you can do this entire thing yourself. The simple Edge training. You could start using this to model your buildings. The tool is really there to help you sort of run through and understand what various different measures would have, what the impact of these various measures would have on your project. So if you'd like to say, well, what if I put solar hot water on this project? What's going to be the cost against the actual benefit? What are my utility cost reductions going to be like? You can see very clearly with this size of a solar hot water system, it's going to save me X amount per month. My capital investment is going to be this amount. My payback is going to be this. It just makes everything very, very transparent. It also gives you, the impact in relation to the other measures you're putting in. So if you're putting water efficient fixtures and showers, what that relationship would be like between them. I wish I could show you on the app right now, which is down, which is very bad timing. So I hope that sort of answers your question, but feel free to add a follow-on.
No, it does. It does. Thank you very much. It does. I just wanted to just verify and just confirm and reconfirm that it is as I see it and as I understood it to be. And as I said again, it was a very thorough presentation. Thank you very much for your hard work and for the opportunity.
Great, thanks, Trudy. Appreciate it. I've seen the questions come up in the comments box now. Francis, perhaps you didn't have access to it, so I will go through some of these. Okay, Donovan has left a comment more than thing. Siddhartha, is there a catalog within Edge that provides comparative efficiency gain of various building materials? Yeah, there is. So within the Edge website, there is, if you go down to the bottom of the website, there's an area called methodologies, and that'll provide you it's user guides, and there is a user guide on the material. So it'll give you the embodied energy and materials calculation for every single material that they've accounted for in the Edge app. So there you'll get a thorough analysis, and also what's good about Edge is continually updating itself. So when we believe that something is not quite accurate, we had a situation a couple of years ago where Thika stone was sort of given a much higher embodied energy than we felt it was, and we wrote a technical note through KGBS and had that adjusted to be more reflective of the actual value. So I hope that answers that. Ted is online. Ted is the chairperson of our KGBS, and he's actually an energy auditor. So if anyone has any technical energy auditing questions, he can answer those. Yeah, that's yep. Ted has made a comment. We have an edge clinic for single-family dwellings, which is done by KGBS at no cost. So that's something that KGBS can do for you if you're building a single dwelling. And I'm very sorry, the Edge website is just down. I'm unable to get back into it. So I can verbally maybe state some of what would happen. So as I was moving through those energy efficiency measures, I was going to put in, let's say, solar PV, and we would have seen that in the top bar, we would have seen, you know, the improvement in energy, and we would have got past the 20% threshold we need to get, you know, to beat the energy side of it. And in the top, you'll have seen a payback period and an incremental investment cost. For example, the payback period may have said 3 years, which can show that our investment will pay back in our investment in these energy efficient measures will pay back in 3 years' time, and you know the rest is then just savings to the project. So once we meet to the 20% on the energy side, we go to the water. We'll put in all our various efficiency parameters there. We'll get past 20% again. In the materials, we'll do the same thing. We'll put in all our materials we're using on the project. Perhaps it may come up to 18%, and then in the design process you can say, well, okay, great, what can we do to be more efficient? How can we reduce the floor slabs of our building? How can we reduce the external walling thickness, or how do we change the material? That would be something that's more efficient and resource efficient and environmentally friendly. So once we get past all those 3 parameters, we've then reached 20% across all 3. We're ready to go. You can submit your project, you get it audited. It'll be independently audited by an auditor, and you will be given a certification following confirmation of the audit. So that basically breaks down the Edge tool. Again, we have a more detailed Edge training workshops. If you're interested in becoming an Edge expert and taking the exam to become an accredited Edge expert, KGBS is licensed through our certification partners to provide Edge training. It's an 8-hour workshop provided by one of our Edge trainers, after which you can sit the exam, and that Edge workshop should give you all the information, knowledge you need to sit down the exam straight away afterwards and pass it. So if you have any questions on that, feel free to reach out to our administration at KGBS. That's admin@kgbs.co.ke, or to Francis or to myself directly. Feel free. Good. So I think we've made good time. Don't see any more questions here. Ted, if you're still in the call, would you like to add anything on the energy side, on energy codes, etc., seeing as you are the energy expert? Francis, I'm not sure if...
No. Yeah, thanks, Amrish. I wouldn't want to add anything more. I think it was very detailed. It's unfortunate the app logged out, but I would encourage all the energy auditors on the call to download, or rather not download, but sign into the app. I think it's very useful in terms of the payback period, because it adds another factor, which is the incremental cost. So usually in the energy audit report, we talk about the payback period, but not the incremental cost. So especially if you're doing, for example, a hotel energy audit or a building residential energy audit, you're able to tell the client the incremental cost. So not just how much he's saving or how fast he'll pay back, but also what's the incremental cost. That's very important, and you'll see in some projects there's actually no incremental cost. So I think that's very important. And also water efficiency, which is something that we might not focus a lot on, but with the Edge app, you're able to really see the water savings. So those are the 2 comments. Of course,
yeah, great.
And of course, do join KGBS as a member. I think there's a lot of value that we can add both in IPER, because I'm also actually a founding member at IPER. So I just think that it's very good for us to also have energy auditors within our membership.
Yeah, very much so. Great. Yeah, thanks for that, Ted. And yeah, please do, join KGBS, support in any way you can. We are a membership-based organization. So, we do rely on the support of our members to keep the momentum going. Great strides have been made on the green building side. We are seeing a massive flux of green building projects. Personally, on our own private consultancy, we've certified 8 projects last year in Nairobi. We're working on about 15 to 20 new projects at the moment. So it's really sort of taking off. Edge is a great, easy way to allow people and developers to build green and certify green without using a very comprehensive system. We don't advocate one over the other. LEED, which some of you may be familiar with, is very relevant to a lot of clients. Some of the, Edge does not address certain areas in, waste management or, land use impacts, etc., which are extremely important environmental factors. So, Edge is simplistic in its nature, but it's trying to address sort of the key resource issues that they see as the biggest problem, and allow that scalable uptake from the market. Great, so I think we've reached the time. No more questions. Thank you very much for your time, for attending the session. We look forward to seeing you guys as members and becoming Edge experts, and we look forward to the next one. So thanks very much. I'll end the webinar now. Thank you.